Welcome to Kiss and Chapters, where every story begins with a spark and ends with a swoon. If you love heart-fluttering romances, unexpected twists, and characters you'll root for, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so I can keep bringing you more sweet, emotional, and unforgettable stories. Let's fall in love with every chapter, together. Chapter 1. Waking in a Borrowed Body. I woke to the scent of lavender and something unfamiliar. The air was heavier than I remembered, thick with a faint floral sweetness, and the bed beneath me was softer than any mattress I'd ever slept on. My eyes fluttered open to an ornate canopy of cream-colored silk, swaying slightly in a draft I couldn't feel. Where am I? I pushed myself up slowly, and that was when the pain hit me, a bone-deep weakness that made my arms tremble as if I'd just run a marathon. My heartbeat was sluggish, echoing dully in my ears. The room around me was like something out of a historical drama. Carved wooden furniture, velvet curtains, and a vanity with a gilded mirror. No blinking electronics. No phone charger. Definitely not my apartment in China. I stumbled to the mirror, each step a labor, and froze when I saw the reflection staring back. A girl. Pale, too pale, with silky black hair spilling over thin shoulders. Her lips were almost colorless, her frame delicate, fragile, as if a strong gust of wind could shatter her. What the hell? I whispered, touching my own cheek. And then the memories hit me, not mine but hers. Lysandra Wei. Daughter of a minor noble family. A girl whispered about in the corridors of the Imperial Academy as the cursed one, fated to die before she turned 20. I staggered, clutching the vanity for support. No. This wasn't possible. I knew that name. I had read this book. The Rose of the Imperial Court. A palace romance novel I had picked up during a boring weekend. The main heroine, Celestine, captured the attention of the aloof crown prince and survived court intrigue with her dazzling wit and kindness. Lysandra Wei, a footnote in the story. A sickly girl rumored to be cursed. She died quietly in Chapter 3, and the plot barely mentioned her again. A cold sweat broke out along my spine. I was inside the book. And I was in her body. As if to confirm my horror, a sudden wave of exhaustion hit me. My knees buckled and I collapsed onto the edge of the bed. My vision blurred at the edges and I could swear my pulse was fading. Then I heard it. A soft, mechanical ding inside my head. System alert. Foreign soul detected. Warning. Current body lacks sufficient life energy. Survival time 3 days. What? My voice trembled. Another line of glowing text appeared in the air before me, like an AR screen no one else could see. To extend life, gather soul energy. Sources. Ambient aura, life-rich individuals or fated events. Soul energy. Life extension. 3 days. My heart thudded weakly. I wasn't just dropped into a novel. I was dropped into a dying body. A sharp knock on the door made me flinch. Miss Lysandra? A maid's voice, muffled but polite. Your father wishes to see you at breakfast. I stared at the door, panic fluttering in my chest. My father? Her father. The nobleman who barely acknowledged Lysandra's existence in the novel. I had no idea how to act like this girl. My legs wobbled as I tried to stand. 3 days. I only have 3 days unless I find this energy thing. I shuffled to the door and opened it a crack. A young maid with a timid smile curtsied. Her eyes flicked over my face and for a split second, fear flitted in her expression. The master says to come quickly. He does not like to wait. I nodded mutely. Speaking felt like lifting weights. By the time we reached the dining hall, I was sweating from the effort of walking. My new father, Lord Wei, sat at the head of a long table, sipping tea with the grace of someone who thought his life was the most important in the room. He glanced at me only once. You're awake, he said flatly. Good. Try to survive this week. The family can't afford more rumors of curses. I swallowed. That was it. That was the concern he had for his only daughter? My hands trembled as I picked up a spoon. The porridge in front of me looked rich and nourishing, but the first bite turned to sand in my mouth. My throat burned with fatigue. I didn't finish breakfast. By the time I returned to my room, I collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. 3 days. Somewhere in this world was the energy I needed to survive. I couldn't rely on this frail body to get far, and no one in this household cared if I dropped dead tomorrow. which meant I had two choices. 1. Die quietly just as the novel intended. 2. Break the plot and steal every shred of life energy I could. My fists curled weakly against the sheets. If fate wanted me dead, it could fight me for it. Chapter 2. The Rules of Survival. I woke the next morning with a headache that felt like a drumbeat echoing inside my skull. For a moment I forgot where I was. My hands groped the sheets automatically, searching for the cool rectangle of my phone, only to find embroidered silk. Then memory crashed over me like a wave. Not my apartment. Not my life. Lysandra Wei's frail body. 3 days to live. A low ding sounded in my head again and faint golden letters appeared in the air. Warning, life energy critically low. Estimated remaining time, 2 days 14 hours. The countdown made my stomach twist. Okay, I whispered to myself. No panicking. Yet. I tried to sit up only to feel my muscles protest. My body was like an abandoned house, dusty, creaky, and on the verge of collapse. The same voice from yesterday, calm, genderless, echoed in my mind. Survival Guide for Transmigrators. This body requires external life energy to sustain. Collect soul energy to extend lifespan. Right. Soul energy. I rubbed my temples. So how do I get that? Do I just eat something glowing? Sources of soul energy. 1. Ambient aura, natural environments rich in life. 2. Life-rich individuals, proximity and physical contact. 3. Fated events, key moments aligned with destiny paths. I blinked at the floating text. Wait, you're telling me I can literally leech life off people? Clarification. Absorption from life-rich individuals will not harm them. Proximity increases absorption rate. I exhaled in relief. So I wouldn't be draining people like a vampire. Good. Still, none of this sounded easy. I didn't even know where to find ambient aura, and this fragile body would probably collapse halfway to the forest if I tried to run away. I looked out the window. Morning sunlight bathed the Wei family's estate in gold. The garden below was blooming with white and pink camellias. Birds hopped along the hedges. Maybe the garden had some aura I could borrow? I staggered to my feet, leaning on the wall for support. My legs felt like soggy noodles. Each step was a negotiation between willpower and gravity. By the time I reached the garden, my lungs burned like I'd sprinted a mile. I knelt on the grass and pressed my palms into the soil, half praying this would work. Please, please, please. A soft warmth bloomed in my hands. My breath caught. It was faint, like dipping into a sunbeam on a winter morning, but I could feel something trickling into me. My limbs stopped shaking quite so violently. Plus 0.5 hours life energy gained. I frowned. That's it. At this rate, I'd have to glue myself to the dirt for an entire day to gain another day of life. My body didn't have that kind of stamina. I sat back against the trunk of a tree, panting. Hey. Plan B, life-rich individuals. Who even counts as life-rich here? My mind automatically supplied the image of the novel's male lead, Crown Prince Auren Kaiser. In the book, he had a legendary life force and an affinity for the sun element. He also happened to be as cold as an iceberg and famously hated anyone touching him. He only softened for the heroine Celestine. I groaned. So my best chance at surviving is a guy who won't even let me shake his hand. Great. Fantastic. The universe must have been listening because that was when I heard the crunch of boots on gravel. I turned my head and nearly choked. A tall figure in a black military coat approached the garden path, sunlight catching on his black hair. Even from this distance I could feel heat radiating off him. Not literal heat, but something deep in my bones whispered. Energy. He's full of it. Crown Prince Auren Kaiser. In the novel, his first encounter with Lysandra Wei was brief. He saw her during a palace visit and dismissed her as already dead. He would probably do the same now, unless I did something. I gripped the grass to steady myself as he approached. My body reacted instinctively like a wilted plant leaning toward water. The closer he got, the warmer I felt. Proximity detected. Life-rich individual nearby. Absorption rate, 2 hours per minute. My heart leapt. Just by being near him I was gaining time. He paused when his sharp golden eyes landed on me. His brows furrowed. You. His voice was cool and deep. Why do you look like you're about to die? I forced a smile. Morning exercise. Went a little wrong. He stared, unimpressed. You're trembling. I laughed weakly. It's the wind. There was no wind. Auren Kaiser's frown deepened. For a heartbeat I thought he would just walk away, but then he stepped closer. The warmth surged, my whole body tingling. Plus 20 hours life energy gained. Oh, this was addictive. My chest no longer felt like it was being crushed. I could breathe again. But the Crown Prince tilted his head, studying me like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Strange, he muttered. Your aura feels wrong. Panic flared. I forced myself to laugh. I've always been weird? He didn't answer. Instead he turned on his heel. Stay out of my way, Lysandra Wei. You look like a ghost haunting the garden. He walked off, leaving me on the grass, breathing hard but alive. I glanced at the glowing counter in my vision. Remaining life, 3 days 9 hours. I'd bought myself a little more time. But the message was clear. Without the Crown Prince I wouldn't last a week. By the end of the day I collapsed into bed, exhausted but determined. Tomorrow I'd test the last method, fated events. If the story wanted to follow its script, I'd make it work in my favor. As if I didn't, this borrowed body would become a coffin. Chapter 3. First Brush with Death. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the faint golden counter hovered at the corner of my vision. Life remaining 3 days 2 hours. The sight made my stomach twist. I'd gained time yesterday thanks to the Crown Prince, but most of it had trickled away overnight. I touched my face. My skin was clammy, my body still foreign to me. This wasn't a body that belonged in the world of the living. It was like a candle guttering in the wind. I couldn't just survive on chance encounters with Auren Kaiser. He wasn't exactly the type to let a stranger follow him around like a stray cat. I needed more energy. By midday I'd worked up the courage to leave my room again, dressed in Lysandra's pale blue dress. Servants gave me wary looks as I walked down the hall, some even whispering behind their hands. There goes the cursed girl. She's paler than a corpse. I pretended I couldn't hear them. The estate's gardens had given me a small boost yesterday, but I needed more. There had to be a stronger source of ambient aura somewhere. I remembered reading in the novel that the Wei estate bordered a small forest known for its old trees. The kind of place that might hold real energy. It took nearly an hour of slow walking with frequent stops to catch my breath, but eventually I reached the edge of the forest. Sunlight dappled the path, filtering through layers of emerald leaves. The air was cooler, damper and alive. I stepped under the first arch of branches and a shiver went down my spine. Warmth trickled into my body. Plus 0.5 hour life energy gained. I let out a shaky laugh. Finally, progress. The deeper I went, the stronger it felt, soft pulses of energy sinking into my skin. My steps became lighter. My body no longer screamed in protest. I wandered, touching the rough bark of old trees, and for a brief moment, I almost felt hopeful. That was when the rustling started. I froze. It wasn't the gentle movement of leaves in the wind. It was deliberate. The hairs on my neck rose as I slowly turned my head. From the shadows between two oaks, a pair of glinting yellow eyes watched me. Oh no. The novel's memory surfaced at the worst possible time. The Wei Forest was home to spirit wolves. Low-level magical beasts, usually harmless to trained knights, but to someone like me, the creature stepped into view. Its fur was dark gray, streaked with silver, and its fangs gleamed wetly. Its low growl rumbled through the quiet forest. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. The system chimed unhelpfully. Warning, life-threatening event detected. Chance of death, 87%. 87. I yelped, tripping over a root. The wolf lunged. I scrambled, my body reacting too slowly, my lungs screaming. Pain shot through my side as I hit the dirt hard, and then a flash of silver sliced through the air. The wolf yelped, collapsing a few feet from me, a shallow cut along its flank. I blinked through the blur of tears and saw him. Crown Prince Auren Kaiser, his silver sword glinting under the trees. His expression was cold, annoyed even. You, he said flatly. Do you have a death wish? I opened my mouth, but only a wheeze came out. The prince's gaze swept over me, lingering for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Then his brow furrowed. You're fading. I barely heard him. The warmth of his presence seeped into my body and my vision steadied. My trembling eased as the system chimed. Plus 24 hours life energy gained. Relief washed over me, almost dizzying. I clung to consciousness, knowing that if I blacked out now, I might not wake up. "Thank you," I croaked. His expression didn't soften. "Why are you here?" I considered lying, but my brain was still scrambled. "Wanted to see the trees?" He stared at me, unamused. "You're reckless. And weak. You won't last a week like this." I bit my lip. He wasn't wrong. But something about his tone, half frustration, half curiosity, sparked a tiny ember of hope in me. Then he sighed and extended a hand. "Get up." I hesitated for a moment, then took it. The moment our skin touched, warmth surged through me, stronger than before. My knees stopped wobbling and I felt almost alive. He noticed my reaction, his golden eyes narrowing. "Strange," he murmured, but didn't pull away. Back at the edge of the forest, he released my hand. "Stay out of here," he said simply. "Next time I might not be around to save you." And with that he turned and walked away, his coat swaying with each precise step. I watched his back until he disappeared, my chest tight with a mix of fear and gratitude. My life counter now read: life remaining, 4 days 5 hours. For the first time since I arrived, I had gained more than I lost. I leaned against a tree, catching my breath. It was clear now. I wanted to survive. I needed him. Chapter 4. Testing the limits. I spent the rest of the day lying in bed, staring at the gilded ceiling, replaying the events in the forest. Ulf. The cold hand that saved me. The warm surge that chased death from my body. I touched my chest, feeling the faint thrum of life that wasn't mine alone. Life remaining, 4 days 2 hours. I had more time than yesterday, but that didn't make me feel safe. I was still a walking hourglass, grains slipping through faster than I could catch them. "I can't rely on him forever," I whispered. Depending solely on Crown Prince Auren Kaiser was dangerous. He wasn't some friendly neighbor lending sugar. He was the Crown Prince. In the novel, he was constantly surrounded by guards and court politics, and he only ever trusted the heroine, Celestine. If he discovered the truth, that I was a foreign soul leeching his energy, I wasn't sure he'd spare me. I needed to experiment. The next morning, I dragged myself to the garden with a blanket, a book from Lysandra's shelf, and a half-baked plan. Step 1. Test ambient aura. I sat under the old camellia tree and closed my eyes, focusing on the life energy trickling from the soil and sun. It was pleasant, like basking in a warm bath, but the system chimed. Plus 0.2 hour life energy gained. 0.2 hours? I groaned. At this rate, I'd need to meditate for weeks to gain a single day. Not sustainable. Step 2. Test emotional triggers. The system had mentioned fated events. I didn't fully understand it, but if this body resonated with the novel's storyline, maybe certain moments could feed me. The only problem was Lysandra Wei didn't have many fated events. She was a tragic footnote who died quietly in her room. I needed to create one. I got my chance in the afternoon. From my bedroom window, I saw a group of stable boys struggling with a spooked horse. It reared and whinnied, almost breaking free from the reins. A servant girl tripped near its hooves, frozen in terror. My heart leapt into my throat. Instinct screamed at me to stay out of it. My body was weak. My bones were paper. One kick from that horse and I'd be a headline. Transmigrated dies after heroic stupidity. But then another thought slipped in. Fated events. Acts of bravery. Emotional triggers. If I wanted life, I had to risk it. I bolted down the stairs, nearly collapsing twice, and stumbled into the stable yard. "Move!" I shouted, my voice hoarse but loud enough to make the servant girl flinch back. The horse reared again, and with all the strength I had, I grabbed the dangling rein and pulled. The world blurred. The air filled with dust and the sharp scent of hay. The horse jerked and my frail body flew forward, slamming into the dirt. Pain exploded along my shoulder. For a moment I thought I'd black out, but then the rein twisted in my grip and the horse stilled, trembling but not bolting. Silence fell over the stable yard. "She saved me," the servant girl whispered. I coughed, spitting out a bit of dust, and the system chimed. Fated event triggered. Act of courage. Plus 12 hours life energy gained. A wave of warmth rolled through me, stronger than the garden's aura but gentler than Auren's presence. I sat up, bruised but smiling. I'd done it. I could earn life. Reckless, a familiar voice said from the gate. I froze. Auren Kaiser stood there, his golden eyes sharp, his coat spotless despite the dusty yard. He must have arrived on a palace visit again just in time to see me wrestle with death. You again, I muttered, trying to brush hay from my dress. He approached slowly, his shadow falling over me. You're bruised. I've been worse. I tried to laugh, but it came out breathless. His gaze swept over the yard, the trembling servants, the horse now calm in the corner. Then his eyes returned to me, lingering. You're fragile, he said simply, but stubborn. Thank you. He crouched and for the second time in 2 days offered me his hand. I hesitated. Every time I touched him I felt like a thief. But my body was still shaking and his hand was steady, warm. I took it. Plus 18 hours life energy gained. The warmth spread through me like sunlight after rain. My pain dulled. Auren studied me with a frown. Every time I touch you I feel something strange. Panic skittered down my spine. A strange how. He tilted his head, his black hair catching the light. Like your existence is clinging to mine. My heart skipped. I forced a smile. Maybe I'm just grateful? He didn't look convinced. But he didn't pull away either. That night I lay in bed with a mix of satisfaction and dread. I had learned 3 things. 1. Ambient aura was almost useless. 2. Fated events could give big bursts of life energy. 3. Crown Prince Auren Kaiser was my ultimate battery, and my ultimate risk. Because every time his golden eyes lingered on me, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was getting closer to the truth. Chapter 5. A dangerous bargain. By the next morning my body was a patchwork of bruises. I hissed as I sat up, tugging the sleeve of my nightgown higher. The faint purple marks along my shoulder and arm were a harsh reminder of my heroic stunt with the horse yesterday. It had been worth it though. Life remaining, 5 days 16 hours. I was finally ahead of the clock. For the first time since waking in this fragile body, I felt a flicker of hope. But hope was dangerous. It whispered that maybe I could change the story and survive. I didn't get to bask in the feeling for long because a servant knocked on my door, voice trembling. Miss Lysandra, the Crown Prince has requested to see you in the garden. My stomach dropped. Auren Kaiser. He had probably seen enough of my accidents to suspect something was off. I found him waiting beneath the camellia tree, his black military coat perfectly pressed, silver hair catching the sunlight. He was leaning against the trunk, arms crossed as if the world itself was on pause for him. Your Highness, I said cautiously, dipping a curtsy that nearly made my knees buckle. Golden eyes lifted to me and for a brief moment I felt exposed as if he could see the ticking clock hovering over my soul. You, he said finally, voice smooth but cold, are either fearless or foolish. Little of both? I offered. His brow twitched. You almost got yourself killed yesterday. And 2 days before that I found you about to faint in the forest. Are you trying to die? Technically, I thought grimly, I am trying not to die. Aloud I said, it's not like I wanted any of that to happen. Bad luck just follows me. Auren studied me for a long moment, then said something I didn't expect. Stay close to me. I blinked. What? I don't like repeating myself. He stepped forward, his presence like the sun breaking through clouds. You're a walking accident. If you insist on wandering into danger, I might as well keep you where I can see you. My brain short-circuited. Was this an invitation? Life-rich individual proximity secured. Absorption rate, plus 3 hours/minute. Warmth seeped into my bones and I almost sighed in relief. But my rational side screamed that this was dangerous. In the novel, Lysandra Wei barely interacted with the prince. If I altered the story too much, I might trigger unknown consequences. Then again, I was already living on borrowed time. What exactly do you mean by, stay close? I asked carefully. You will accompany me whenever I visit the Wei estate. In return, his gaze sharpened. I'll make sure you don't die. He said it like a promise and a threat at the same time. My heart skipped. This was the bargain I hadn't dared to hope for. Proximity meant life. But also risk. The closer I was to him, the more likely he'd notice the truth. I swallowed hard. All right. I accept. Auren nodded slightly as if he'd expected that answer. Then without warning he reached out and touched my wrist, his gloved fingers curling around my pulse. Plus 24 hours life energy gained. The warmth hit me like a wave and I had to bite my lip to keep from gasping. Your pulse is faint, he muttered, frowning. You feel like someone trying to hold on to life with sheer willpower. I forced a shaky laugh. Guess I'm stubborn like that. His eyes lingered on me for a long, unreadable moment. I'll allow you to follow me. But if I find you lying to me about anything... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The cold edge in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. The next few days followed a rhythm I could live with, barely. Whenever Auren visited, I stayed within a few steps of him, soaking up the life energy that radiated from him like invisible sunlight. The first time his sleeve brushed against mine, the system chimed in satisfaction. I was careful though. I never lingered too close, never touched him unless he initiated it. Too much and he'd start asking the questions I couldn't answer. But despite my caution, something unexpected happened. The prince started talking to me. Your balance is terrible, he observed one afternoon as I tripped over a pebble on the garden path. I've noticed, I said dryly, dusting off my skirt. Do you even eat? Sometimes. He gave me a look like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. You're infuriating. I smiled weakly. Thank you. The tiniest twitch of his lips told me he was amused. By the 5th day I was starting to believe I might actually survive this strange existence. Life remaining, 6 days 4 hours. I was gaining more than I was losing. But the system had other plans. That night as I lay in bed, a new notification flashed across my vision. Plot event approaching. Assassination attempt at the Imperial Academy. Chance of death, 92%. I sat up, heart hammering. You've got to be kidding me. I wanted to live. I had to step right into danger again. Chapter 6. Assassination in the Academy. The system's warning didn't let me sleep. Plot event approaching. Assassination attempt at the Imperial Academy. Chance of death, 92%. I stared at the faint golden text, heart pounding. In the novel, this was a turning point for the heroine Celestine. She would be trapped during a palace visit to the Imperial Academy, and the Crown Prince would save her, earning her first real favor with the court. I wasn't part of that scene. But now that I'd tangled myself into Auren's orbit, the system clearly wanted me involved. The next morning, a formal summons arrived from the Wei household steward. Miss Lysandra, you are to accompany His Highness to the Imperial Academy for inspection day. My fingers trembled as I held the scroll. Great. The death flag was officially waving. The Imperial Academy was dazzling, in a way that felt like walking straight into a painting. The white marble halls glimmered under sunlight. The lush gardens were perfectly symmetrical, and banners bearing the Empire's crest fluttered in the breeze. Young nobles in pristine uniforms bowed as Auren passed, and I trailed a step behind him like a pale ghost clinging to the living. I could feel the eyes on me. Who is she? Isn't that the cursed Wei girl? Why is His Highness letting her follow him? The whispers pressed against my back, but I forced myself to focus on the faint warmth of Auren's presence. Life remaining, 6 days 2 hours. I was stable for now. We entered one of the Academy's long corridors, sunlight streaming through tall windows. Auren was speaking to a professor about upcoming examinations when it happened. The shimmer of steel. The whistle of an arrow. My body moved before my brain did. Watch out! I screamed, lunging toward him. Auren turned just as I shoved him aside. Pain exploded in my shoulder as the arrow sliced across me instead of him. I stumbled, half collapsing to my knees, vision spinning. Critical injury detected. Life loss accelerating. Blood seeped through my sleeve, hot and sticky. My ears rang and the hallway erupted into chaos. Guards shouting, professors screaming, the echo of boots against marble. Through the haze I felt a hand grab me, warm, strong, grounding. Lysandra. Auren's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the noise. Stay with me. I gasped, shivering. His touch was like a lifeline and the system responded instantly. Plus 36 hours life energy gained. Warmth surged into me, dulling the pain just enough to keep me conscious. Auren's eyes burned gold as he scanned the corridor. Assassins, he muttered, low and furious. How dare they? Another arrow shattered the window behind us. He swept me into his arms without hesitation. For a heartbeat, my brain short-circuited. I was cradled against his chest, his heartbeat steady against my ear, his scent a mix of steel and sun-warmed leather. Then he moved, fast. His long strides carried us through the corridors as guards engaged the attackers. I clung to him both because my body was weak and because his presence fed me life energy like a constant trickle of sunlight. Plus 18 hours life energy gained. Every second in his arms was keeping me alive. We burst into a side chamber, the heavy door slamming shut behind us. Auren set me down gently on a bench, his hands firm but careful. His gaze swept over my bloodied shoulder. "You're hurt." "It's not that bad," I lied through gritted teeth. He didn't believe me for a second. His jaw tightened. "Why did you do that?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You could have died." I tried to smile, though my lips trembled. "I couldn't let you get hit." Silence fell. His golden eyes locked onto mine, unreadable, but something heavy lingered there. "You're reckless," he said finally. "And infuriating." "I've been told that before," I whispered. Auren exhaled as if he were holding back something he didn't want to say. Then he reached out and pressed his palm lightly against my uninjured arm. Plus 24 hours life energy gained. The warmth spread stronger than ever and I nearly sagged in relief. "Stay with me," he murmured. "I'm not letting you die in some dusty corridor." The attack ended quickly. Auren's guards were efficient, but the impact lingered. By the time we returned to the Wei estate that evening, my life counter hovered higher than ever. Life remaining, 8 days 12 hours. The assassination attempt had been terrifying, but also a boon. A near-death event combined with Auren's proximity had fed me more life energy than anything else so far. As I lay in bed that night, my shoulder bandaged, a thought gnawed at me. Every time I survive, I get closer to him. Every time I get closer to him, I risk him discovering my secret. And yet, when he held me today, I didn't feel like a thief. I felt safe. Chapter 7. Whispers and Suspicions. By the time I could stand without swaying, the entire Wei estate had changed. Servants whispered in corners. Guards patrolled the halls like silent shadows. I could practically feel the tension in the air. And everywhere I went, I caught the same words, murmured under breaths that weren't quite soft enough. "She saved the Crown Prince? The cursed Wei girl? Maybe she's not cursed after all." I didn't know if that last one was meant as awe or disbelief. I stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror, my bandaged shoulder peeking out from under my nightgown. Life energy hummed faintly inside me. Life remaining, 8 days 6 hours. I'd never been this stable before. The brush with death, the surge of faded energy and Auren's constant proximity had all combined into a jackpot. I wasn't dying. For now. But stability had its own price. Attention. People had seen the weak, fading Lysandra Wei throw herself into the line of fire for the Crown Prince. And worse, they'd seen him carry me in his arms. The whispers weren't just about me anymore. When Auren visited the estate again 3 days later, the hallways buzzed like beehives. I met him in the garden as usual, where the camellias bloomed defiantly despite the growing tension in the air. "You look less like a ghost," he said by way of greeting, his golden eyes scanning my face. "I feel less like a ghost," I admitted. "Good," he said simply before tilting his head. "But don't think that means you're allowed to fling yourself in front of arrows again." I smiled faintly. "No promises." He sighed, but there was the tiniest twitch of his lips, the closest thing I'd seen to a smile on him yet. Then his expression cooled again and he stepped closer, his voice lowering. "There are rumors." I swallowed. "About me? About us?" My stomach twisted. "Some think you've bewitched me," he said bluntly. "Others think I've taken a sudden interest." Heat rose to my cheeks. "And what do you think?" He studied me for a long, unreadable moment. "I think..." He took another step and the warmth of his presence rolled over me. "You are hiding something." Panic fluttered in my chest. The system chimed softly in my mind as if mocking me. "Warning. Life-rich individual is developing suspicion. Risk of exposure, 47%. I forced a shaky laugh. "Hiding something? Me? I barely leave my room." "Exactly," he said smoothly. You barely leave your room, and yet in the last week, you've survived a wolf, a stampede, and an assassination attempt. And every time you come out, stronger. My mouth went dry. Coincidence? Auren leaned in slightly, his gaze sharp and piercing. I don't believe in coincidences. For a moment I was sure he could see the truth. The ticking counter of my life, the golden numbers hovering in the air that only I could see, the way his warmth soaked into me like sunlight into frozen skin. Then he straightened, his expression cooling. I don't know what secret you're keeping, he said. But I intend to find out. And with that he walked past me, leaving the faintest trail of warmth and tension behind. That night I couldn't sleep. The system didn't help either. Fated event approaching. Imperial banquet. Chance of political intrigue. 78%. Chance of death. 35%. I groaned into my pillow. Can't I just have one peaceful week? But I knew better. The Imperial banquet was another pivotal moment in the novel. Nobles schemed, alliances shifted, and the heroine shone under the spotlight for the first time. And now, thanks to all this attention, I was going to. The next day a maid delivered a gown to my room, a deep sapphire dress embroidered with silver threads. Luxurious. Dazzling. Designed to make me noticed. When I held it up, the system chimed with a new notification. Warning, entering a high-stakes plot arc. Survival strategy required. I stared at the shimmering dress and whispered to myself, well, I wanted to live. Time to earn it again. But deep inside, a part of me trembled. Not from fear of dying, but from the way Auren's eyes had lingered on me in the garden. If he discovered the truth, I wasn't sure if he would save me again. Chapter 8. The Banquet of Daggers. I had never felt so exposed in my life. The sapphire gown clung to me like moonlight on still water, its silver threads catching every flicker of candlelight. A servant pinned my hair with a pearl comb, and when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back. She looked like she belonged at an imperial banquet. I, on the other hand, felt like an imposter in someone else's dream. The palace ballroom was alive with color and sound. Crystal chandeliers bathed the hall in golden light, reflecting off gilded walls and polished marble floors. Nobles swirled in silks and velvets, laughter tinkling like glass, but beneath it all I felt the sharpness of hidden knives. Every gaze that fell on me was heavy with curiosity, or suspicion. That's her. Cursed Wei girl. The one the Crown Prince carried in his arms. My stomach twisted. I wanted to shrink into the floor, but I couldn't. The system was already warning me. High-stakes event detected. Survival depends on social maneuvering. And right on cue, Auren Kaiser appeared at my side. Stay close, he murmured, his voice low enough for only me to hear. I wasn't planning on running into the middle of the dance floor, I whispered back. He glanced at me from the corner of his golden eyes, and for the briefest moment, the corner of his mouth tilted, almost a smile. But when the crowd noticed him at my side, a wave of whispers rippled through the hall. The first wave of danger came not from an assassin, but from the heroine herself. Celestine entered the ballroom like a ray of spring sunlight, her pale pink gown flowing like petals. She was as dazzling as I remembered from the novel, with soft chestnut curls and a smile that could melt an entire kingdom. And when her warm brown eyes landed on me, her steps faltered for just a moment. I thought grimly, here we go. Lysandra Wei, she greeted sweetly, though I heard the faint edge in her voice. How unexpected to see you here tonight. I curtsied, keeping my voice light. Life is full of surprises. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Indeed. Especially since everyone says you've become quite close with His Highness. Behind me I felt Auren shift slightly, his presence like a shield. Lysandra is under my protection, he said smoothly, and the room went silent for a beat. The whispers started immediately after. Under his protection. He's never said that about anyone before. Celestine's smile tightened. For a moment I felt a flicker of guilt. I was never supposed to stand in her way. But guilt wouldn't keep me alive. Dinner passed with stilted politeness and an undercurrent of tension. But the real danger struck after the first toast. I had just lifted my goblet to my lips when the system flashed a sudden warning. Poison detected. Immediate action required. I froze. The wine shimmered red under the chandeliers, innocent to anyone else. But to me it was death in a cup. Heart pounding, I tilted my hand just enough to spill the drink onto the marble floor. Gasps rose around me, and the nearest noblewoman gave me a scandalized look. I stammered. I'm terribly clumsy. Auren's hand closed over mine under the table. His voice was quiet, but the steel in it made my blood run cold. Who? I shook my head subtly, my eyes darting around the room. Nobles were whispering, watching, but I couldn't identify the culprit. Before I could answer, a wave of dizziness hit me, not from poison but from the rush of energy through Auren's touch. Plus 18 hours life energy gained. I inhaled sharply, gripping his hand tighter than I intended. For a moment, the world narrowed to the warmth of his skin and the quiet intensity in his gaze. You can't keep doing this, he murmured. My chest tightened. Doing what? Looking like you're about to vanish, and then coming back stronger every time. It's not normal, Lysandra. I couldn't meet his eyes. My secret was slipping closer to the surface with every event, every brush with death. The banquet descended into subtle chaos after that. Whispers of sabotage spread. The emperor ordered an investigation. Nobles scattered into corners to gossip and scheme. I stayed close to Auren, the only safe harbor in a hall full of daggers. As we finally left the palace that night, riding in the shadowed comfort of his carriage, exhaustion weighed on me, but so did something else. I glanced at his profile, illuminated by the faint lantern light. Strong jaw, golden eyes like molten metal, every inch the cold crown prince of the novel I'd read. Except, he wasn't as cold anymore. You saved me again tonight, I murmured before I could stop myself. He looked at me, expression unreadable. And you'll tell me why you keep needing saving one day. My breath caught. Maybe. The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. For the first time I realized that I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting to live. Chapter 9, Cornered by Truth. By the time we returned from the imperial banquet, my nerves were frayed like a worn thread. The Wei estate was quiet under the moonlight, but my mind wasn't. Life remaining, 8 days, 18 hours. I was at my peak, yet I couldn't relax. Every major fated event bought me more time, but it also dragged me closer to danger, and closer to Auren's suspicions. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, as I stepped into the garden for my usual dose of sunlight and peace, Auren was already there. He stood beneath the camellia tree, his black coat crisp, his silver hair catching the early light like frost. "Morning," I said carefully, trying for casual. He didn't answer right away. He just studied me, those golden eyes sharp and unyielding. "Sit," he said finally. I obeyed, perching on the stone bench like a student awaiting punishment. "You're going to tell me," he said, voice low. "What's happening to you?" My throat tightened. "I don't know what you mean." His gaze sharpened. "You do. Your color changes. Your pulse flickers. And every time I touch you I feel." He hesitated, as if searching for the right word. "Like something is feeding off me." I froze. The system chimed in my head. "Warning. Risk of exposure 76%. Recommend strategic evasion." I forced a weak smile. "Maybe I just feel safe around you?" Auren didn't look convinced. He stepped closer, and suddenly he was towering over me, the sunlight at his back turning him into a figure of shadow and gold. "Lysandra," he said softly but firmly, "you are living on the edge of death. I can feel it. And I'm not going to watch you fade without an answer." I opened my mouth, desperate to say something, anything, when the system blared a new alert. Critical event triggered. Betrayal in the garden. Chance of death, 67%. I barely had time to process before a sharp pain lanced my side. I gasped and looked down to see a knife protruding just below my ribs. A hand clamped over my mouth. A familiar voice hissed in my ear. "Finally, the cursed Wei girl will die." It was one of my own family's servants. I recognized him, the quiet one who always lingered at the edges of the hall. The world spun. My vision blurred with pain and panic. Auren's roar split the air. "Lysandra!" The servant was ripped away from me in an instant, Auren's blade flashing, guards thundering into the garden. My knees buckled and I collapsed to the ground, warmth flooding down my side. Critical injury detected. Life loss accelerating. Through the haze I felt strong arms lift me. My cheek pressed against Auren's chest and the system surged. plus 48 hours life energy gained. It wasn't enough. Stay with me, he commanded, voice tight with something that sounded dangerously like fear. Do you hear me? Don't you dare close your eyes. I trembled, clutching weakly at his sleeve. I can't. You can, he growled. You will. As he carried me toward the estate, shouting for the royal physician, I realized he wasn't just angry. He was terrified. The next few hours were a blur of bandages, pain, and the faint warmth of life energy trickling into me whenever Auren touched my hand or brushed my hair back from my face. At some point, when the physician finally left and the room was quiet, he sat beside me, elbows on his knees, golden eyes dark in the lamplight. I almost lost you, he said quietly. I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice hoarse. He looked at me then, and the cold, untouchable prince I had read about was gone. In his place was a man with fire in his eyes, struggling against something he couldn't name. You can't keep doing this alone, he said. Whatever this curse is, whatever is eating away at you. He reached out and cupped my face gently, almost reverently. I'm not letting it take you. My chest tightened. My throat burned with words I couldn't say. I'm not from this world. I'm stealing time. I'm stealing yours. But I couldn't speak the truth yet. Not when I didn't know if he'd see me as a person or a parasite. All I could do was nod weakly and whisper, okay. That night, as he dozed in a chair beside my bed, the system chimed one last warning. Final plot event approaching. Life or death confrontation. 95% chance of exposure. I closed my eyes and whispered to the empty air, please. Just let me have one more day. Chapter 10, Borrowed Time Given Back. I woke to the sound of rain. Soft, steady drops against the window. The world felt muted, heavy. My side throbbed beneath the bandages, but the sharper ache was in my chest. A quiet awareness that my time was running out. Life remaining, 1 day 3 hours. I had gained time from the stabbing, from Auren's constant proximity, but the clock never truly stopped. It was always waiting for me like a predator in the dark. And now the system's final warning echoed in my head. Final plot event approaching. Life or death confrontation. 95% chance of exposure. The event came faster than I expected. By midday, Auren was at my door, rain dripping from his black coat. His face was grim, his jaw tight. Lysandra, he said quietly, we need to go. Now. I blinked at him. Go. Where? There's been an attack on the palace outskirts. It's connected to the one at the banquet. They might come for you next. The system chimed in warning. Hostile encounter predicted. Survival chance, 41%. I swallowed hard, but I nodded. Staying behind was never safe anyway. The carriage ride was tense. Rain streaked the windows. My hands fidgeted in my lap, while Auren sat across from me, watching me with that unblinking intensity one was starting to recognize. You're too calm, he said finally. I gave a shaky laugh. If I panicked every time my life was in danger, I'd never stop screaming. His lips twitched, but the seriousness never left his eyes. After today, he said, I'm getting the truth out of you. I don't care if I have to shake it out. I looked away. My throat tightened. You might not like the truth. The confrontation came in the forest road leading to the palace outskirts. It happened so fast. One moment the carriage rattled along the muddy path, the next arrows pierced the wood with a sharp thunk. Horses whinnied. The driver shouted. Down. Auren barked, pulling me to the floor as more arrows flew. The carriage skidded to a halt. Armed men surrounded us, their faces masked. I didn't need the system to tell me I was about to die. Auren moved like a shadow, blade in hand, cutting through the first attacker who burst through the carriage door. Stay behind me, he commanded. I wanted to obey. I really did. But the moment he stepped out to face the others, I saw the glint of a crossbow aimed at his back. I didn't think. I moved. No. I shouted, shoving him aside as the bolt slammed into my chest. Pain exploded white-hot and my body crumpled to the muddy forest floor. Critical injury detected. Life remaining, 5 minutes. I heard Auren's voice through the haze of agony. Lysandra. Arms wrapped around me, pulling me against his chest. His warmth flooded over me and the system screamed in my mind. Absorbing life energy. Plus 60 hours. plus 72 hours. But it wasn't enough. My vision flickered, the numbers above my soul ticking down faster than ever. I couldn't keep taking from him like this. Tears slipped down my face. My lips trembled. I'm sorry, Auren. Stop talking, he said hoarsely, pressing his hand over the wound, trying to staunch the blood. You're going to make it. You don't understand. My breath hitched shallow. Not from here. I woke up in this body, and it's dying. I've been stealing time from you. He froze. The forest noise faded, the rain, the shouting of guards. It all disappeared under the weight of that confession. You've what? I take your life energy, I whispered, tears mixing with rain. That's the only reason. I've survived this long. Auren stared down at me, his golden eyes wide with shock, and then something else. Something sharp but not anger. You foolish girl. His voice broke. You think I'd let you die when I finally... He stopped, breath shuddering, and leaned close, his forehead touching mine. When I finally realized I can't lose you. The system chimed weakly. Emotional bond reached. Life energy stabilizing. Warmth surged through me. Not the stolen kind, but something deeper, like the system had accepted his words as an anchor. Life remaining. 10 days. Stabilizing. I gasped, light flooding back into my veins. My wound still hurt, but the gnawing emptiness of death receded. Auren held me tighter, his voice low and fierce. You're not dying. Not now, not ever. If my life keeps you alive, then it's yours. I choked on a sob. You'll regret saying that. Never, he said, and before I could reply, he kissed me, desperate and grounding, like he was willing me to stay in this world. The system hummed in quiet approval. Bond confirmed. Shared lifeline established. Survival rate, 98%. By the time the guards finished off the attackers and escorted us back to the palace, I was weak but alive. Auren never let go of my hand, and the warmth of his energy remained steady, no longer stolen but freely given. I had started this journey as a girl running from death, trapped in a story that wasn't mine. But as Auren brushed wet hair from my face and whispered, "You're mine now and I'm not letting go," I realized something. For the first time since transmigrating, I wasn't living on borrowed time. I was living a life I'd chosen. And someone had chosen to live it with me. Bonus chapter. A life that's ours. Spring came to the capital like a shy smile. The rain-slicked streets of winter dried to soft sunlight. Camellias bloomed in the Wei estate garden again, just as they had the first day Auren ever visited me there. Only this time I wasn't hiding behind doors or counting the hours of my life like stolen coins. The system was silent, peaceful. Life remaining, stable. Lifeline shared, active. I could breathe. Truly breathe. Auren had insisted on moving me to the Crown Prince's residence for security reasons, though I knew better. He simply didn't like the idea of me out of his reach. So here I was, wandering his sunlit courtyard, fingers brushing over budding roses, when I heard the faint crunch of footsteps behind me. "You're outside without me again," Auren said, his voice carrying that familiar edge of disapproval he used to reserve for everything I did. I turned with a smile. "I'm just touching flowers, not fighting assassins." His golden eyes softened, though he still strode forward like a storm disguised as a man. "I don't care. I like knowing you're safe." I rolled my eyes. "You can't watch me every second." He reached me and, without hesitation, drew me into his arms. His warmth seeped into me instantly, and though I no longer needed it to survive, it felt comforting. "Maybe I can't," he murmured, "but I'll try." I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady thump of his heartbeat, the sound that had saved me more times than I could count. After a moment of comfortable silence, he pulled back just enough to meet my gaze. "You've been smiling more lately," he said softly. "I have a reason to," I whispered. "I used to think I was just surviving, borrowing time. But now," I hesitated, heart pounding. "Now it feels like I'm living." Auren cupped my face in both hands, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones with the kind of care that made my chest ache. "You are living," he said firmly. "You're living our life now." Before I could reply, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't the desperate life or death kiss from the forest. It was slow, warm, and certain, the kiss of a man who had chosen me and the kiss of a girl who had finally chosen herself. The camellias swayed in the spring breeze, and for the first time since I opened my eyes in this world, I thought, maybe I really can stay. Extra chapter. The day my world flipped. I used to think my life was boring but safe. I had a small apartment above a bakery, a cat named Dumpling, and an ever-growing stack of romance fantasy novels on my nightstand. The highlight of my week was curling up in bed, reading about characters with tragic fates and impossible love stories. My favorite book was The Rose of the Imperial Court, a palace romance about Celestine, the kind and brave heroine who captured the cold Crown Prince's heart. My least favorite character? Lysandra Wei. A frail, cursed side character who existed to highlight Celestine's goodness. She lived sickly and bitter until she died in Chapter 3, alone and unloved. When I read her chapters, I always thought, what a miserable life. Good thing I'm safe in mine. I should have knocked on wood. It happened on one rainy Tuesday night. I had stayed up too late rereading The Rose of the Imperial Court, hugging my warm blanket, the smell of bread from the downstairs bakery drifting into my apartment. My phone buzzed with an email I never opened. My eyes were already heavy. The last thing I remembered was thinking, if I were her, I'd survive. The next moment, pain. A crushing weight on my chest. A fire in my lungs. I opened my eyes to see silk curtains, a carved wooden canopy, and a face I had only seen in book illustrations. I croaked, my throat dry. What? Then, like a lightning strike, memories that weren't mine crashed into my mind. The Wei estate, the years of frailty, the endless whispers of cursed child. And over it all, a cold, mechanical voice. Transmigration detected. New objective, survive. Warning, body stability critical. Life energy required to extend survival. I froze. My heart pounded. I'm in the book? I whispered. The system's voice continued, calm and merciless. I stared at my trembling hands, realization dawning. I hadn't just wished I could change Lysandra's fate. I was Lysandra now. From that moment, my life wasn't mine anymore. Every breath felt borrowed.